What up brothers, it's Club King returning for the comparison video that I promised you when I did the full review on the Mark 45 last night. I feel like I'm just going to throw these two in. I might do just the upright positions that they're in now and then maybe a dynamic pose for each figure a little bit later. But I'm going to try and compare them. It will just be a loose comparison. I'm not talking about sort of armor section for armor section. I'm just going to tell you which I think looks best, which has the best outfit, box, and so on and so forth. Every category I would cover in my review, I am going to talk about on both. As you can see, it is the Mark 42 on the left and the Mark 45 on the right. There is full reviews of these up on my channel, so please check them out if you haven't already. But yeah, I'm going to compare everything, tell you which I think is the best value and tell you which I think is the best set. So I've also just posted on Facebook a picture very similar to this, just saying if anybody wants to leave any comments or ask any quick questions, I'll try and pick them up at the end of this video. So I will do that. Just looking up and down the figures first. Like I said, pretty much upright positions, not too dynamic at the moment, but just enough to whet your appetite. Right, so before we start, just a bit of background on both figures. Obviously the guys in the know already know all this, but bear in mind I'm getting new subscribers all the time, maybe young subscribers that don't understand these figures or where they come from, so just a bit of background information on these. So the figure on the left is the Mark 42 and it comes from the movie Iron Man 3, which in my opinion was an okay film. Not great. I think what killed it more than anything was the weak villain and the fact it followed straight after the first Avengers film, so we'd seen the highlight of seeing all the characters get together. You're back down to seeing basically just the Iron Man, which would have been okay, but basically if you watch that film back, there's a lot more Tony Stark than there is Iron Man in it. I think then they tried to sort of make up from that by cramming every Iron Man armour in that there's ever been, giving them a little bit of screen time, and then Hot Toys just went mental and released every figure from that. The figure on the right is the brand new release last week, week before last I think, Mark 45. That comes from the Age of Ultron. It's only seen in the fight scene at the end of Age of Ultron, so again it's not an armour we see a great deal of, but it is a really nice one. So that's the introduction. While they're in this position, I will first talk about the packaging. I compare them. There's nothing in it really, it's basically down to artwork. If I had to choose, I would pick the Mark 42 for the better artwork, because on top of the sort of artwork, you kind of get the line drawing on the plastics around, which gives it a very nice depth look. Sorry I can't show you in a minute, but it just take me an hour to rummage around for the 42 box, although the 45 box is to hand. If you can't remember what the packaging looks like, please refer back to the reviews because I do show them in that. But yeah, if I had to, somebody twisted my arm and asked me to pick one, I would pick the 42 as far as the artwork of the packaging goes. So I just wanted to cover that quickly before I talk about more meaningful things. Right, so to compare the likeness, and I'm basically covering the facial likeness. And really, I'm not even telling you about how accurate I believe either one is. I'm basically saying, have they done good work? Is the sculpt looking good? Is the paintwork looking good? Is there any obvious sort of flaws in it? That sort of thing. Now, I'll go straight into it and say, the first thing you notice, and you can see it through the viewfinder, that the 45 is definitely more reflective, particularly on the faceplate and most of the gold sections. So as we move into that, you can see the light pretty much bouncing off it. So there is that. Whereas the 42, it's just a duller paintwork. So it's still metallic, but it's not as reflective, and it's more of a yellow than it is a gold, to be honest. Another thing that makes me prefer the Mark 45 is, if you look at the intake vents on the forehead, there's a definite depression that goes from the gold into the red, which makes it look very aggressive, very nice. And also the cutaways underneath the cheekbones, and even the sort of protrusions which are coming out the side of where the ears would be. It gives it a very aggressive look. If I move across to the 42, you see it's a lot more neutral. So again, the intake vents on the forehead are basically only slight depressions, and it's more line work. The eyes on this one, when they're not lit up, do look black inside, so like you're looking into an empty helmet, where on this one you see it's white even when not lit up, so I do prefer that 45 for that reason. The sort of depressions where the cheekbones are and not as detailed and not as sunk, so I don't know, again looks a little bit bland compared, and the sections sort of where the ears would be, again don't jut out as far as on the 45. Another reason why I prefer the head on the 45 is the head articulation. It's mainly down to the neck, but where I would try and get the head right up on the 45, oops, just popped it off. You basically go into there, with the 45, you can go all the way back like so. I think it goes back a bit further than that, but I don't want to pull the head off. So yeah, another reason why I prefer it. But when I'm talking heads, I'll make a point. With the 42, you did get a battle damage faceplate, and you also got a Robert Downey head sculpt. I don't know if this is that one. No, this is the lighter one. So you did get that, and that is missing in the 45. So again, although I do prefer the look of the 45, the 42 gives you more options, so bear that in mind, and also remember it when I get back to which I think is the better value set. Right, let's talk outfits. I'll firstly start off by saying, obviously, one is overly gold, the 42, and the 45 is overly red. Now, if I had to choose, I would go for the red, because I think, or when I see an Iron Man in my mind, it is the red that sticks in my mind. Although the initial Iron Man that I remember as a kid were pretty much an even divide of sort of the red tank top with the yellow arms coming through and the red gloves, the yellow legs and red boots. So it were an even divide in them days, but now I prefer the redder looking. And I think that's down to how you pose it with your other Avengers or Marvel figures. So for me, the choice is I would go more red, less gold. So I'll say that first off. Another point I'll make is both suits do look awesome in their own right and do work really well. The engineering on both is top notch. Anybody who's seen either of them will agree with that. This, I will say there were a problem with the shoulders when this one first come out, but mine didn't suffer with it, so I can't really talk about it. Another thing with the shoulders, a lot of people always ask, can you push the shoulders so the gap between the body section and the shoulders doesn't show? Now I can do that with either figure. Basically move the arm into a position where it sort of brings the shoulder pad up. Same with both as well. As you can see, we're talking a millimetre tops. You can obviously raise the arm, move the shoulder into a position, and it will look very realistic, very natural, but I can do that with both. Obviously, if you then decide you want to pull the arms out or start posing them like that, you are going to fuck the aesthetics up, but that's down to you, that's not the figure. So that answers one of the questions I did get earlier on. Talking about the styling, the 42 is definitely more robotic looking. It's an out and out armour, so it's sort of, it's got its bulkiness, it's got its sharp edges, it's got its sort of, the contrast between the red to the gold is got a very random feel about it. Well, on the 45, you're pretty much only highlighting it with the gold, and then under the gold you get the silver. So I'm looking here, sort of the gold highlight across here, but then the silver underneath, leading into the silver into the shoulder. The sunk sections of the elbows, the silver. Sort of the rib cage intake vents is silver. But like I say, it does work nice. The colours do blend together, and it does have that very organic feeling. Like I said in the review, the curves are very muscular looking, like where your muscle groups would be. That is how the armour plates are. Again, very sleek across the chest, where this has the very, I don't know, very robotic look, the strict line across there. The abs are basically just full plates, where this one, it's sort of, it just fits in nice, it got a smoother look. So on the looks of it, I'll say this first, how it works, there's nothing in it. They both work really well. There's a slight improvement articulation wise, I would say, on the 45, but they're both engineered brilliantly. So I will say that. Although aesthetically, I do prefer the 45. I do like the sleeker edges because I always loved the Mark IV. This is the closest one to the Mark IV, I would say, along with maybe the Mark VI. But yeah, I have always loved the sort of sleek smoothness. And when I say sleek smoothness, that is a perfect example. The sort of nice curve in the shoulder pad, where this is a lot squarer, the bulkier sort of padded shoulder look. So yeah, on the looks, I would go for the 45. So let's talk about the articulation. I think it's an important category on an Iron Man figure, because I always, when I review them, I sort of take into account, does it look good? Does it look like a human man could be inside it? So is it in scale with the other humans? Does it work correctly? Is there any way that I can think it can work better? Have I seen better before? That sort of thing. And then what I try to do is sort of compare it to something that would be ultra sort of articulated, so something like a Damn Toys figure, but then also in back of my mind I'm thinking of something that's hardly articulated, like an Hulk or a Predator, something like that. So I'm trying to create a spectrum in my mind of where it stands, and I do make allowances with robotic figures, because you know certain people are going to turn around and say to you, well, he can't move that much in film, and you think, but it's an hard fucking thing to think about when you're reviewing, simply because the CG characters or CGI characters, so they can make them as articulated as they want, because there's no real material there that will clash against each other like these suits do. So I do try and think of all things when I'm comparing articulation. So just talking about these two, I will say that most of the articulation points are exactly the same, although for some reason the 45 just feels a little bit more. I don't know if it's more pleasing to the hand, or if it's the motion in the articulated points is a little bit smoother, or you don't feel like it's creaking or going to break in your hand. I don't know. It's a tactile thing. It's not something I can sort of show you and display. It's more of a feeling in hand. It's like the 42, when you pose it, you're constantly feeling, oh, I've hit its limitation, where this 45 just seems to be, its limitations are further away. And like I said, the key one, like I said, is the neck. This one is quite good, and it is just a ball joint at the bottom and one at the top. Same with this, but it's sort of the section, let me show you. It's this section on the neck that just works better. So look, it can go all the way back there. I'm trying to put the neck on without knocking you out of pose. So it just allows for sort of better and more natural positions of the head. Where this one, if I pop it off, it looks like it has it, but it's nowhere near. It's nowhere near what this one is. But I do find it hard to criticise any, because like I've said, they both look awesome and they both move really well. But again, like I said, it is a comparison video, so which is better? I would say the 45, but it's only just. Let's talk about the accessories. What does each set bring? Let's see if we can work out which is the better value for money and what brings the most parts that you would want to use. As we move away, you can see I've got the 42 set up on the left and the 45 on the right. So let's get in and talk about it. The 42 has the all of armour base, obviously with the chrome nameplate on the front and the two light up lines, which is a really nice touch. I do like that base. You can put the feet wherever you choose to, and it does hold the figure really well. It is the metal stand at the back with the sort of waist grab around the right side of thing there. Moving down, a really important extra for me, Tony Stark head sculpt. That word became Tony Hart. It is battle damaged, and it does have a battle damaged face plate. The face plates are interchangeable, so you could have the damaged face with the light up eyes, or you could have the clean face plate over the Tony Stark head. I do like a Tony Stark with my Iron Man figures, I will be honest, and it was one of the major nitpicks with the new 45, the fact it didn't have an unmasked head or one in the helmet or anything. There's no option, you're basically stuck with the head that's on it, so that were a nitpick. You do get a proper battle damaged chest section, the shoulders, the bicep section there, a choice of two right forearms, I have a really battle damaged or the rocket, the left damaged arm, and then the sort of damaged repulsor gauntlets there. Repulsor blast hands, fists and articulated hands on the figure. The batteries are the same for both, and the lighter feature is the same for both. And then you get the instruction manual. So, nice set of accessories that, and I'll explain why in a minute. Looking at the 45, we have the hands, fist and repulsor blast, the battle damage chest, although like I said is a little bit redundant because there's no more battle damage parts. The pink laser blasts, or laser beams, whatever you want to call them. The sort of thruster sections, so the thrust blast that you put onto the bottom of the feet. The set of hands that has the blast coming from it as well. You actually have a variant for the stand. You can either have the crutch cradle, the dynamic flight pole, all screw into that base. You have the Sentry, which is just a hard plastic sculpt, or it does have some flexible parts, some movable parts. And then you sort of have the diorama base, which is a set of steps. Now I do like the base on that. I like the look of it, and I like it with a Sentry on it. But because of its shape, it sort of dictates where the feet go. So that is always a niggle with me. I do like the diorama bases, but if they want to have them built up in certain areas and make them bigger, so you can still, if you want, just have them in a museum style pose or a straight upright pose, and they're not telling you where the feet have got to be. I don't like that about it. So if I scan back, you'll see, sort of part for part, I would say 45 as just as much, if not more. But I think the more important extras are with the 42. The fact that from waist up you can make it totally battle damage gives you pose options. The Robert Downey head gives you pose options. The fact that you can place his feet where you want, it does give you pose options. So like you can have it ultra clean like I've got it, or you can have it battle damaged up. This one, you can either have him basically blasting off using these, or you can have him with the laser beams coming from his forearms. That's basically just part of the base anyway. And then the token gesture battle damage chest plate is neither here nor there to me. So what I would say is, although part for part they are pretty even, I think the 42 has the more important extra parts. So for that reason, I prefer the 42 in that category. Running straight into value, and this is another massive fucking stumbling block for the 45. I'll say this, I paid nearly £300 for it. I don't know exactly, 290 somewhere, but as near as damn it to fucking 300 quid, which is way overpriced. I think on released I paid about 220 on that one. Now, figure for figure, set for set, you've got to go with this one for value. I know the price has come down on this one, it might not on that, and I know it's new release price, so I've paid way over odds. It's like I don't know, I don't know. We're sort of haggling. Well, we're waiting for these figures to come out. The prices seem to be creeping up constantly, and you're stuck with it, either pay it or don't fucking have it. It's that sort of mentality. So, I think the price on this will come down to about 250, which is its real value. I think the price on this is settled somewhere around 200, 180 to 200. If that is the case and that is the real value, and there is a £70 swing in these figures, it's way too much. That's what I would say, because that is better, in my opinion. Or I'm not saying it's better, it's more to my taste. But for 70 quid difference, it isn't that much better a figure. So the value definitely goes to the Mark 42, and that is quite an easy one. So, to sum up, I will say I do like both figures, but I only keep one of each character. I've made it more than obvious I'm keeping the 45. The 42, I'm not going to rush to give it away, to be honest, because it's a figure that I still like, and the fact that it's nearly all gold, I think it still complements the 45 quite nicely. So I think over time I will probably sell it, but I'm not in a rush to get it out at door. So I will say that, because it is still a top figure. So I hope you've enjoyed that comparison video. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to fade out, and then I'll come back in and do an after credit, so answer some questions. I'm hoping there's about 10, but I haven't picked my phone up, so let's have a look. Right, so I must have been fast. I'm getting good. I've got a couple of comments, and fucking one of them's not even a question, and one of them's been answered. So Michael Zanekis has said the gold on the Mark 45 looks amazing. I do agree, particularly the faceplate, totally reflective. If I look at both together, it just takes piss pretty much, so I do agree with that. Andrew says, does the head come off the Ultron that comes with a 45? Great review so far. Yep, the head does come off. It's just, plastic sculpt, the head comes off and the sort of arm stump comes off the left arm. So yeah, and then Guy Phillips has said yes, Andrew, who also has the figure. So respect to him for answering that question. Trying to steal my fucking thunder, getting all involved, yeah? Stealing me questions. Only joking, don't get too fucked. So, another video done. Hope you've enjoyed that. But for now, it's Clipper King, and I am out of here.